here's a way to make a profit in this. Bet on Logan.
I would, but who'd bet on you?
Sundance? When we're done, if he's dead, you're welcome to stay.
Listen, I don't mean to be a sore loser, but when it's done, if I'm dead, kill him.
Love to.
Hello, listening people.
Howdy.
Your howdy cut off. It felt like you didn't get it fully out. It sounds like I cut you off, but nothing happened. You just did that to his howdy.
I think I just did like
Howdy.
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 Howdy now.
Howdy. Howdy.
Now we're back to where we started.
The very first episode
This
of Pictures
is
Powwow.
Pictures Powwow, where Bartek and I, two Polish gentlemen, sit down and talk to you both about the two listeners. I imagine that they're a couple holding hands, mourning the loss of their youth.
Is there diversity between the two of them?
You decide.
Okay.
You decide.
So I'm Bartek and you're I.
And I.
Because we haven't said your name yet.
Rydog.
Rydog.
That's Polish for Ryan. And we're here talking about movies that come recommended. Each week, we discuss a film that was recommended by someone. This time, Bartek was the recommender of the movie. Next week,
That's me.
We'll be talking about a movie that I will be pitching our way at the end of this discussion.
That's right,
And
Doug.
the week after that, it is you, the listening people. That's right. You, the listeners, can suggest movies to us. We add them to the list, and we eventually get around to them. Please give us more movie suggestions, and if possible, give us older movies, because this is the year of older cinema. And today we are discussing a film that, yes, Bartek recommended. What was the film that you said we should watch?
So we've gone back to 1969. We are checking out and discussing, because we've already watched, so we're not checking out, we've already checked out, but now we're talking about in the episode, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
An iconic piece of cinema, starring the great movie stars of Robert Redford and Paul Newman, as well as a cavalcade of wonderful character actors that you love to see. I pointed at the screen, and yes, I will say it now, there is a Babylon 5 actor in this movie.
Ooh,
Did
goody.
you see them? Did you see them, Bartek?
I saw everyone, but I don't know who it was.
Do you want to have a guess? Take a guess, and I'll give you this. They're old in Babylon 5, but they also are old here. So
Was it the Strother Martin guy?
Which one?
Morons. I have morons on my team.
No. He's only in one scene, this character,
Was it
but
one
it's
of
a
the
funny scene.
One of the bank people?
No, it's
The sheriff?
the sheriff. No, so I can't remember what his role was. He was the guy that they came to when they were on the run, and his comedic routine was, you've got to pretend to be robbing me.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
yeah.
the sheriff, yeah.
So he was in Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who he was?
No, tell me.
He was Justin, the most important character of Babylon 5, because he
Oh, that
explains
guy.
the villains.
Like the end of season 4?
Mhm. Season 3. He
yes.
explains the villains, because that actor, he played a lot of villainous characters, but here he's a comedic character, and that's the thing about Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. I just want to say straight off, if everyone, you haven't watched this, it's a very interesting movie. It's a Western, of course. It's detailing these two gunslinger, bank robbing, train robbing boys in their kind of decline of their glory.
The era of the outlaws is basically over,
Mhm.
and they're just desperately trying to cling on.
Yes, it's one of the 4 types of Westerns you get, and this is one of them. But the thing that's interesting about Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is it's very, although it deals with something heavy like that, it's very comedic, it's very, enjoyable, it has a certain air of levity to it, and you kind of get that with just how stylized the movie is. It really leans into that early cinema, the silent days, where you have these sepia tones that start the movie off, but then eventually, the music itself is both very much of the 60s, but also very much of the 1910s. It's kind of fascinating how jaunty the movie is, considering the subject matter, and you got these two iconic movie stars paired up together, and it's just an excuse to see them trade barbs with each other.
Yeah, I really felt that this time around watching the film, where objectively, like, they're going through like a depressing time. Like, everything that they've ever known has led up to this, and it is, basically all for nothing in a way. But I'm just having such a good time watching it because of their performances and the writing and just all the stuff that they get up to.
So I have seen this once before.
Oh, okay.
I have not had that much of a connection to Robert Redford nor Paul Newman. They're actors that I know are iconic. I know of them, but I've not seen a lot of their works. And this was one of them that I had not seen until maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Got it on Blu-ray. It was on sale. Rachel wanted to watch it. We watched it. My wife Rachel wanted to watch it, and we watched it together and had a blast. It was one that lived up to the hype. I also have on DVD The Sting, which is their kind of follow-up, where
like a few years later.
These actors, and I think it's the same director as well.
Yeah, it is.
I really enjoy The Sting. I got to tell you that I really love The Sting.
I've only seen that one once. I need to see it again.
That one's amazing. I love that. But Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, as someone who loves westerns as well, it always just didn't enter my life until I actively went out to watch it. And the thing that struck me then, that does strike me now, as well as outside of the humor of the movie, is the aching sadness that is underpinning it through the restraint of sound. This movie lingers. It loves I think it's really well paced for a start, but it's so interesting to say that this movie is really well paced when there's so many sequences of just silence, just lingering, or having these musical montages of characters riding bicycles and having their moments of life. There's real slice of life quality to the movie, but it is that beautiful pairing of like the fun humor and the levity and these two characters being bigger than life, but also the film just will have these sequences that could be exciting or dramatic or whatever the case may be, and it just sits back and just looks at it from afar with a sense of melancholy and just strips back on the razzmatazz and the noise of it all and just lets it soak in.
This film does a really good job at not just typical world building of like, oh, this is the setting, this is what's happening in the world. It does a really good job of fleshing out the history of these characters, because you meet all of these characters who they have long-running histories with, like, oh yeah, this is the person who they have this gimmick where they're the old man who will be sitting on the porch and he'll point the sheriffs the wrong way so that we can get away, or here's this woman who have this long relationship with,
but she's interested in the other.
Yeah, the Babylon 5 actor that you mentioned before, like, his whole scene is basically like, we've been through this, we're beyond this, we're not meant to do this anymore, now we have to do the ruse that we always do. All right, come on, tie me up. And there's all these gags about like, yeah, okay, that's tight enough.
But then he delivers the killer line of the movie that like essentially sums up the futility of what they're doing. It's like, this age is over, there's only one outcome for you, which is to die brutally. And then he's just like, oh, was that too much? Okay.
Yeah, there's multiple lines like that, but he's like the most blunt and straightforward about it.
So you recommended this. Why? What was your rationale? So you have a dynamic and history with this.
Yep, I've talked about it in a couple of stray episodes here and there, but in Year 12 media studies class, we studied 2 films throughout most of the year. They were, I forget the year, one of the 80s years, The Untouchables, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, this film right here. I very much enjoyed this one more. I like both, but this one I liked more. And yeah, just all of 2011, it was just a year-long study of this film, and, I became very close to it. I became very fond of it. All the discussions that we had in class about it, little running jokes that we had, pointing out little things that add to the film that I wouldn't have thought of at the time, like just so many flashbacks watching this. Like even the font in the opening credits, how it's like this very 60s kind of font showing you like beyond the era that this film is set in. All the other little elements in the film that, subtly or directly show like the future is taking over, this era that they still want to live in. Just really fond of this film, and it really helps that also it's a good film in general. And I think I mentioned to you some point in this past week that I've never actually sat down and watched it for non-education reasons because, all of 2011 I watched it multiple times over in the lead up to, class assignments and the end of year exam, which literally my last day of year 12 exams was 2 exams and one of them was media. So it was right up until the end. And then the year after we started uni and we did a film class and we had to do an assignment where we did an essay on a film of a certain genre and one of the choices was Western. So I'm like, well, I'll just repurpose my Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid study into this assignment. And I haven't seen it, since 2012 when we were starting university. So, wanted to check it out again, long time after. Maybe some things have left my mind and just try to appreciate it in a more, casual manner, even though I am doing a podcast on it. But
still enjoy it for the sake of entertainment rather than academia.
Yep.
So how did it go for you?
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. There were so many moments where I just laughed. The film's very funny. It's very entertaining. All of the things that we talked about in class, like I can still see how it all works. There might have been a few things here and there that I picked up on more naturally or hadn't thought of at all. Yeah, I had a really good time revisiting this.
I also, I guess, have a brush with this in terms of school. I remember one of my friends doing a duologue of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, where they stitched together a bunch of their conversations into like a 5-minute duologue because we had to do them for like drama at Stedfords and stuff. And I kind of remember my friend performing this with another kid in our year. I just, when watching it today, I was thinking about that, thinking about seeing them rehearse it and seeing it eventually be performed at the drama at Stedford, and having a bit of a giggle that the friend that I am talking about is now in jail for committing a crime. So I'm like,
this guy. Okay.
Boy, oh boy, you didn't go out the Butch Cassidy and Sundance way. They not guns.
They
guns
didn't need the army.
They didn't leave the army, but no, I had a blast watching this yesterday. I put this on in the afternoon. This seems like such a good afternoon type movie to me. I've talked about this before. I don't know what it is. There's something that you can't quite articulate or put into words, but there's a certain time of day, some movies or some pieces of media I feel should be consumed, like, many horror movies or gothic movies, nighttime movies or stuff like that, or a movie that's like, oh, this is perfect on a hot summer day, like Dog Day Afternoon's a great example of that. But this is one in which I'm like, yep, perfect. This is a great Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon type movie. It'll roll on through until later afternoon, and I just had a big grin because I remember this movie primarily being set during the daytime as well. Like there's nighttime scenes, of course, but like a lot of it's in the day. And I had a big grin on my face. I love both of them as characters and both of them as performers because obviously Robert Redford and Paul Newman deserve the status that they have earned as actors, as movie stars. Both of them are handsome, but kind of weird looking. Both of them have these piercing eyes that just go through the screen and into your soul. And when they look at each other, you can't help but just say, kiss. Just kiss. Like, they just have a certain...
There's a real bromance film, yeah.
Bromance film, sure. There's a real charged energy between them. And it's not as if we're seeing anything that we haven't seen before, but it's a dynamic that works great, especially in something like a Western, which plays a lot with the tropes of like, here's the more silent, serious, brooding one. Here's the blabbermouth, over the top one who always gets in trouble. We've done this before, but what about this version of it is special? And to me, it's like the chemistry of those actors. It's always down to the chemistry of those actors. I don't mind seeing familiar things, but if they grab me, then I'm in. Like, you could make a direct line from this to the They Call Me Trinity movies in terms of like that dynamics, the similar dynamic, but it's how you present it and the chemistry of those actors and so on. Like, if you haven't seen the Call Me Trinity movies, like, they're brothers in that, but you have the loud blabbermouth one with the piercing blue eyes and blonde hair, and then you have the older, more gruff, silent one who's like very methodical in what they do. But they're different movies, but it's the same dynamic, but played differently. And I was just appreciating that walking out of this is just, this is the type of chalk and cheese, bromance buddy thing that I've seen played out a million times over, but if it works, it works.
Yeah, so many retorts in this film just got such a laugh out of me. Just, there was right after the, raindrops keep falling on my head sequence when Sundance sees his girlfriend and Butch, riding on the bike, being a bit flirty. He's just like, keep her. and that was funny enough, and that was a line that I really remembered. But then Butch's reaction, that's like, oh, real romantic bastard, ain't you?
So, what's an aspect of this you want to get into? What's some stuff that is lingering with you or jumping out?
Yeah, I liked the 2-act structure of this film. How they both, about basically the same idea about, like, the end of the era, how they're gonna, move on from here, but they deal with, like, 2 different aspects of it, where the first half is they're still in the US, they're starting to realize things have gone wrong, they're being chased by very mysterious men who they don't know who they are.
They have guesses.
They have guesses. They have like 4 different times where they're like, who are those guys?
They're good.
Yeah, and you start to learn little bits about who, like, the main people in those groups are, and it's like this kind of tense thriller in a way. Like, even though, like you said, it is kind of a film where they linger on moments and, like, there isn't too much intensity happening, just like the mystery of these 2 guys who we've been led to believe, and they're based on real people, are like the best of the best outlaws, are now just up against something that they can't stop.
It's also, we are only in the decline. We get the opening sequence where we show off how good of a shooter one of them is and how good of a blabbermouth the other is. But after that, we meet their gang who are already turning against them. And after that, and it's just like constantly, like, even if they're good at this bank robbery, oh, look, here's another train that comes by with a bunch of boys on horses. And it's like showing that there is the golden age of whatever they were is like dissolving.
Yeah. But then, but up until that point, there was still a like element of resilience. Where like, oh yeah, the gang's turning on me, but through my wits, I've won them back. Or the Sundance's first scene where it's established like, oh, his name is enough to make this guy who wants to shoot him like shit himself, basically. Yeah. But then, you get up to these guys on horses who are chasing them, and like nothing they do is working. They try throwing them off the trail. They get rid of one of their horses to split the trail. It doesn't work. Butch thinks like, oh, they can't chase us on rocks. Yes, they can. Like, and they keep seeing them from a distance. Like, who are these guys? They're just coming at us. And then they they remember things from their past and realize like, oh, this could be this famous Native American tracker. And oh, that must be like the ultimate sheriff. And then after they miraculously get away, they read like the newspaper and it's like, oh, and the rest of the guys are also really big deals, and they're not stopping even though they've lost us now. So.
And none of those people we get to really see their faces of or our characters. They're always a silhouette. They're always a speck in the distance.
Yeah,
they're always this presence of danger that even when they move to a different country and do their shit, they're still haunted by and convinced, oh, they're going to come here and get
that main sheriff, LaFour's, like that name becomes like, the big threat. Like, oh shit, we got to stop what we're doing right now and like go straight because if LaForce is here, he'll just kill us.
The film uses repetition in a beautiful way with with what we're talking about here. Is jovial. Oh, these guys are good. Like, who are these guys? To, oh no, who are these guys? I'm scared. Like, they're scared of them after the fourth or fifth time of saying, who are these guys? They're good. Like, oh, they're good. The first time they said it, oh yeah, some of their boys got shot to death, but whatever.
Yeah, at that point they're still joking about all of them are chasing us. What's wrong with those guys?
Did you notice or recognize the guy in their gang that wanted to become the leader, the one that was challenging to the knife fight? That's Lurch from the original Addams Family.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
no, I didn't realize that.
So I was like, hey, I know that voice. It
is a deep voice, yeah.
It's a deep voice, but yeah, that's Lurch himself, and he was in some Star Trek episodes as like a monster of the week. But I was like, hey, it's our boy Lurch, and there's a few of those type of 60s to 70s character actors that show up. It's like, oh, I know you. You're from this thing and that thing and this thing. Like the guy on the train who they rob and
Woodcock?
Yeah, he was in a bunch of things. He was in a million things. I think he was in like a Mel Brooks movie or two, perhaps. But he was a comedic guy. And
he was funny. So
I heard his voice, and you know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of Uncle Arthur from Bewitched. Like he has that kind of face and kind of voice, not as iconic of a voice, but just that kind of like nasally, crooked tooth grin kind of delivery of lines. This film is made up of so many one scene wonders like that, and I love movies that can, obviously, if you listen to this podcast, whether it be the days of our commentary tracks of unappreciated masterpieces, or where we do Pictures Powwow, or if you listen to my other podcast, Yum Yum Podcast, I am drawn to these actors and these characters. Like, look, I love Butch Cassidy and I love Sundance Kid in this movie, but I'm always thinking about that bicycle guy. I'm always thinking about that fucking bicycle guy.
This one has really good one-shot characters.
One-shot, or the guy who's
two-shot.
Undermining, the sheriff who's undermining, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's him, but one of them is Kenneth Mars is in this movie, who was, he was in a million things. He was in Mel Brooks stuff. He was in Young Frankenstein as the guy that had like the fake limbs, and he was the guy that was actually hunting after Frankenstein. He kind of has that. I think that was Kenneth Mars I saw, but he was in a million things. But yeah, this movie is like, a million people with one scene wonders.
That was another really good scene for the whole, change of the era topic, where that was one where it's kind of on Butch and Sundance's side, where the sheriff's like, we need to, get together a posse and take down these, infamous outlaws who have been terrorizing us for ages. But at this point, like, the citizens are beyond that. They don't care. They're like, who here has guns? No one puts their hands up. Okay, well, who here wants me to provide them with guns? No one puts their hands up. And the sheriff, like, basically goes from, like, trying to coax them to trying to be like, I'm the law, you follow me right now.
And for a film that's so revered, this is a revered movie. This is an iconic movie. This is often labeled as, like, one of the great westerns or one of the great, like, buddy films or so on and so forth. I mean, the DNA of this type of story has bled through into many others. Like, it's obvious to say this, but if you've played video games and if you've played the Red Dead games, you can't help but see what they're doing in Red Dead is obviously homaging this. But it is great to me that so much of the cast, like 90% of the cast, are made up of like comedic actors of that time. Like Cloris Leachman's in this movie. I couldn't even remember who she was in the movie. I'm like, oh, Cloris Leachman's in this, and she's just like got a funny little one-off bit.
She was like the lady that Butch was sleeping with when they got like Sweet Guy to.
Yeah, and it's like, why are there so many Mel Brooks stable actors in this film? Because they were the funniest actors of that time, so why not get them in here? Because this movie is going for like I think Tarantino talks about it a lot, like the kind of hangout movie. Like, yeah, there's a plot, there's intensity to it, but like really, you're here to just hang out with these characters. Like, you're just here to see them rob banks and have fun, and it's not going to end well, but it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, have them quip about it and, show their personalities, show how those personality traits get like twisted when they don't work, and then still at the end of the film, like the last conversation they have, even though one of them's like, I'm beyond all this, I shouldn't listen to you anymore. It's just like a straightforward another scene where it's like, that's a good idea. Let's try it out.
They're the dog with a bone. They just can't let it go. I want to know, who do you like more, Butch or Sundance?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think just because he's much more quippy, maybe Butch.
I knew you would.
It's really hard. They're both really great.
He won that knife fight real well.
Again, that was a really good example of like his personality, where it's like, all right, first we have to talk about the rules. There's no rules in a knife fight, of course, and then kicks him in the nuts, slams him with his fists, and he wins.
I love him. I love Butch. Sundance is great because he has the allure of being better than all of this. He has the air of being the professional.
He's the action guy.
But he's dumb as well. Like, he's not... Like, that's why they're a perfect duo, because you think, well, this one would probably be better off without the other, but actually they need each other because they've the other half of each other. And, you know, Sundance, Robert Redford, he has... To me, it's like the hat and the hair and the moustache and the outfits are all just like on top of or surrounding what is the most important part, which is his eyes. Those eyes are doing so much work in this movie. Like, most of the stuff he gets aren't like clever little quippy retorts. It's just him like darting those eyes over, and that's like makes you giggle enough. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah.
Even when he does get lines, it's usually like, you know, him being thrown off, like, oh, shit.
It's usually aided or punctuated by those eyes darting over. It's just so
like when
good.
the famous cliff scene where Butch is, you know, thinking up a plan of like, all right, you know, we can escape by jumping down, and Sundance is, you know, trying to shut down that idea because he has a fear.
And he doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, and then when he does admit it, you know, he's got this insecurity.
I liked how
darts his eyes down.
I like how little they knew about each other's pasts as well. It's constantly brought up. It's like, oh, so you know more about it than this place, huh? It's like, yeah, I know more about it than you know about that. It's like, well, haha, fuckhead. I was born and raised there. It's like, you were.
You didn't know I was born in New Jersey.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, there you go.
We should rename the film Parker and Longball.
Oh God. But it's not just those two. There's a woman in the movie too.
There is.
There is. That actress is really interesting.
Catherine Ross, I think.
Really interesting. She had a terrible time making this film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I actually didn't read too much trivia. I read a little bit. But...
So she was dating at the time the cinematographer, who's a famous cinematographer as well. He did American Beauty, weirdly enough, which I think he finally won his Academy Award after he died, the cinematographer, but they were dating at the time. This is Conrad L. Hall, which is different to another Conrad Hall, who's a cinematographer as well. Like, isn't that crazy? And guess what? Not Conrad L. Hall, which is this one. Conrad Hall worked as assistant cinematographer on American Beauty. They both worked on they both were there, but they were Conrad L. Hall was dating this actress at the time, and she was visiting set. You know, she just was so interested in the production of this all, and they were short hands on cameras. So she already knew how to operate some camera stuff, and then he taught her some more, and he got her to operate one of the cameras for a sequence. It all went well, but the director was furious, fucking livid, but he didn't say anything during the whole day. He just let it be. And then at the end of it, he banned her from set only for her scenes. You're never allowed on set unless it's only your scenes that you're filming, because you weren't, like, a woman should not be operating the camera.
Oh, I see.
And also, you're an actress. You're not you're not one of them. So she hated him and said her favorite scene was the silent music, like the silent bicycle riding scene, because that was filmed by second unit and the director wasn't there for that one.
Okay.
So that was her favorite scene to do because she loathed him and despised him.
So the scene associated to the Academy Award it won.
Yeah. one of the most iconic scenes where it's just beautiful, but also just an ability to show off that this actor can do bike tricks. But I wanted to raise too. She went on to marry one of the classic cowboy actors, Sam Elliott. The Sam Elliott,
There we
who
go.
she's married to him. They've been together for quite some
I think
time.
there was a
but
trivia point that he was in this film.
yeah, probably.
It was like one of the card players in the Sundance opening scene.
Yeah, isn't that cool? But yeah, so Sam Elliott and her got together at some point, but he's a cowboy guy. You know, he's always, got that voice, and he's in the Big Lebowski, of course, but and many other things. But I thought that was interesting. And the other fun behind the scenes thing that I read was Robert Redford was so determined to do his own stunts in this. He wanted to do the train thing, like run and talk.
Oh, I read
the
this
roof.
trivia point, yeah.
And Paul Newman, being the business-wise person, is like, no.
I don't want to lose a co-star, I think he
I
said.
don't want to lose a co-star. Like, I don't want to fuck this up, but also I will do my own bike tricks.
I will do all the bike trick except the one where I crash into the fence.
Yeah, because I can do bike tricks. They're safe. I can do them. You cannot run on the roof of trains. You don't do that professionally, so fuck off.
Yeah, and the other stunt he did was do the kissy face to the cow.
Oh, of course. What a great stunt. But no, she's an interesting character because she's like,
At her place.
she, on the surface, seems like she's going to serve the traditional role of the woman, of being like the moral center and the voice of reason, but not really. Like, she has her moments, but she enjoys it. She enjoys the life of
that's
being
her,
wild and rough and tumble. And
that's
she
her big
teaches
line
them,
at the end of the first act, where it's like, I'm the lowest of the low. I'm 26 years old and I'm a school teacher. So you guys are the only excitement in my life. So if you guys want to go to Bolivia to try to recapture, your glory days, I'm with you on that.
I just won't see you die. I won't be there for that scene.
Yes.
As she says. And she isn't. She leaves before that happens because she can sense things are going bad.
If you know how the film ends, then when she's like, I think I'm going to go back ahead of you guys, it's... Yeah,
bye-bye.
It's like a damning scene.
Yes, it is. I liked her joining in on the robberies. That was fun. And just like how cordial and very silly it is. A lot of their robberies are not like nail-biter thrilling. They're just very like silly fun, fluffy. Like a lot of the heists and robberies are just fluffy fun.
Oh, the first one they do in Bolivia is like the funniest scene in the movie where... the whole of that second act up to that point, which hasn't been much, very early on, was we're in Bolivia now. They speak Spanish. Butch said that he's fluent, but he's not as good as he said. So we have to get Etta to teach them how to speak Spanish. And so the first robbery that they do, they have to remember their lines of, like, this is a robbery. Put your hands up, stand against the wall, hands up. Mm-hmm. And Butch is so determined to say all the lines in order that, like, when he's falling behind, they've already done the thing that he's demanding, so Sundance is now retorting back to him.
He's reading from the crib sheet.
He's reading from the sheet and sounds like they're already up against the wall. They've got their hands up.
And Butch was pretending that he was fluent when they were learning, like he was better, because he was in the other room and he was checking the sheet when they couldn't see it. And then she's praising him for being a fast learner. And then when they're actually in the heat of the action, he has to grab out his paper and it's like, if you're so smart, you read from this.
And also the great, turnaround of like Sundance was the one struggling with the Spanish and now he's the one, saying like, Butch, you're fucking up here.
The most, it starts to get more intense for them in terms of like the filmmaking of the heists and so on and so forth when they turn straight. And they have to be like guardsmen for stuff, and they're like getting sniped and shot at and behind the rocks, and then they like that's the more like when they're actually now having to face the other side of what they do.
Yeah, and in the lead up to that, like they were, hyping themselves up like, okay, this is like the flip side of what we do, so we'll be able to counter this just, perfectly because we know how robberies work. But then once they're in the thick of it, it's like, shit.
Yeah, and then they rob the robbers and kill them all. And Butch reveals that he's never shot anyone before, but boy, is he good at shooting them when he gets a chance. I really liked that character, the guy that hired them. Yeah. And like his whole background of like why they are getting hired and him being impressed with Sundance's shooting abilities when he can move. It's like, can I move? It's like, what do you mean? I'm better when I move.
That was such a great scene.
That is a great
Where
scene.
it showed you, like, oh, Sundance, the great gunslinger, actually does have a flaw.
Of course. But that character, he's like a classic, like in any other Western, this would be like the old timer,
The prospector.
the old timer, maybe the old sheriff, like the classic, like, oh, this character is going to be the guy who talks a lot in the movie. That's going to be a fun guy.
The old man supporting character with the funny accent.
Yeah,
or
who gives us exposition and blah, blah, blah. And in this movie, they just fucking murder him and he's gone, and you just have to accept it. You're
And
like,
also,
"Oh, okay, he's gone."
him being that sort of, vibe-ish character of like, oh, he'd be like the supporting funny guy. He is like business-minded.
Oh, yeah, he's professional. Like, he knows how all of this should... He's like... Obviously, he's going to die because he's all like, this is how this works. This is how it all plays out. And then, obviously, he gets killed. I liked the mirroring of, at the start of the movie, banks being updated because they're robbing them all of the time.
What happened to the old bank? It was beautiful.
Yeah, the cost of beauty.
That was a good line.
And then when they're in Bolivia and they're robbing the banks pretty easily, but then when they go straight, then they have to worry because now they're revisiting places they've robbed. And then obviously as it gets along, the banks now are getting more and more armed and more defended and more and more. And it's just harder, even though the banks haven't been updated. It's just like, oh, they update things by just giving us more guys with guns. Uh-oh, that's not great for us.
Again, I've said, there was that great line where so many times this episode already, but the great line where it was, didn't we hit this place up back in June?
Mm-hmm.
Just showing like how widespread they've been.
Or that they don't remember which alias they are. That's also pretty good. Yeah. Which one was I? Was that you? Was that me? And then they just both walk up.
Let's just live a little.
Let's just live a little. So there is I'm curious to know what about this changed for you the most on this rewatch. Like, you were wanting to see it outside of the academia sense of it. So what is something that you want to really get into in terms of, like, now you've been able to rewatch it for the sake of entertainment and then for this discussion? Like, what's the thing for you?
I think just because since then, we've analyzed hundreds of films, talked about hundreds of films, just like seeing how effortless it all kind of feels. Like, on paper, it feels like, if they got some other actor, like, the film would have played out, it would have been fine. But just, the way the performances were done, the way that all the little things, like you were talking about, the eyes and the little glint in the smile of Butch when he's got a retort coming. It all just worked so well. I think the only thing in the film where I was kind of on it was the montage on the way to Bolivia.
Oh, you didn't like that? Of them enjoying themselves?
Yeah, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It's just that I didn't quite fully get the point. I know it was like, they're like, oh, this is them, living normal, happy lives. I think it just went on a little bit too long.
Oh, it works for the comedy cut of them in Bolivia, where it's like a shithole, and this could be the capital. This could be all of what people could come to visit.
This could be the garden spot of this country. They go hundreds of miles just to come to this spot.
There were some interesting choices in that montage. Like, there was this really trippy visual of, like, they were on some sort of ride or whatever, and they were like kind of falling, and then they kind of did this effect where it was like cutting in on the image like several times, where it gave you this disorientating effect of like what it would be like if you yourself was falling in that kind of spinning image. That was really good. I actually have a hard time finding a flaw with this movie because
same here.
I was just having a good time. Like, the ending, if people, again, you haven't watched it, tough shit we're going to talk about, is iconic. Like, it is something that I knew about before going in.
They call it the Bolivian army ending.
And it writes that tone really well, where it is thrilling, it is suspenseful, it is brutal, but it's fun. Like, you know these characters are going to die. They know they're going to die after a certain point, but there is no depression to it. There is no sense of like grim, dark stoicism. It's met with like this plucky, energetic whimsy almost to it. But yet
they're not feeling despair at the end of it all.
There's a reason why the film ends on a still of them running out, and then you just hear the end of it rather than seeing them get mowed down. This isn't Sonny from The Godfather getting mowed down, and that's how we're going to end him off. Like this knows that you have been enjoying these two characters. Yeah, they're going to meet the fate that they have made for themselves, but the film has a wise enough judgment to let us end on a high note, even though it is a low note for them, like it's the end for them. But you kind of walk out with this sense of like a sense of like, wow, I had a great time watching that movie. Yeah, did the two guys at the end get shot up to death? Yeah, but I don't know, the way it's handled is all of those things mixed together beautifully.
It's like all of their dialogue in that whole final sequence was basically just more of what we had throughout the whole film, where they're eating like the lunch they've been given. Sundance like bitch, because Butch is complaining about something. The gun shooting starts, and they're panicking, and they have that moment where they're talking about like, okay, Sundance, you're running out of ammo. There's more of the mules all the way at the other side of the square. The
thing that got them caught. And they don't even know it.
Because it's got a brand. And he's talking about how, okay, Sundance, you need to go and get the ammo. Then, like, there's a bit of a pause, and Butch is like, oh, hell, it has to be me. Why do I have to be so damn smart? Because that's something that keeps coming out throughout the film. Butch is the smart one, and Sundance always has a quip about that, and now we got a twist where Butch is the one being like, I have to be so damn smart. Mm-hmm. And then the whole sequence of him getting the ammo while Sundance is covering him is, them at their best working together. They have all these little lines about like, oh, if you weren't such a lousy shot, we would be doing better. And then we mentioned before the whole Australia conversation right at the end where, after we're done with this, incident, let's go to Australia next. And
why would I want to go there? They speak English there, they do.
Yeah, and Sundance has so many little great lines where he's like defiant but also dumb. And the really childish lines like, I just don't want to go all there and find out it's crap or whatever.
I recommend Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. Marvelous film. Still gripping, still entertaining, still enjoyable after all of these years. It lives up to its reputation. And there's just something there about seeing two actors have that spark of chemistry on the screen. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that they work together in a movie, and you just can't help but want to see them do it over and over and over again. There's just like that beautiful certain sparkle that they have between them. They're different types of performers, and yet they're so similar to one another, and that goes with their characters too. It is great. Highly recommend it.
In year 12, my teacher kept saying, like, this is the ultimate buddy film, and I guess this is another thing that I really wanted to see, like, if that still holds up, and again, it was just so effortless.
Yeah.
This really is a great buddy film, and as depressing as, again, a lot of the things that we've talked about, low moment in these guys' lives, it's also the end of their lives. The girl leaves, they're done with everything. You leave feeling like you just watched had a really good time.
When you think of buddy films, what are some of the ones that spring to your mind? Like, who are the buddies when you think of buddy films? Who are they?
I guess for me, I think of the more like straight up comedy films. Like, you got your like Bill and Ted's, your Garth and Wayne's, Jesse and Chester, those kind of characters. But yeah, seeing it in this one where it's a bit more of like a straightforward Western film, but still have that comedic touch. Like we mentioned the other day, you forgot that we did this. We did Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and I'm with you. I do not remember much about that film, but I feel like that film was trying to go for something like this. And
he was trying to be this movie.
It was trying to be this movie, but didn't quite work.
No,
this is where it works.
Buddy films, it is hard not to think of comedy films because you just have that thing. And also it's hard not to think of, for me, sometimes the buddy films where they start off not as buddies and then become them, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Great example.
Shrek.
Shrek, sure. Like all road trip movies often pair with these because you often have a pair of characters thrown into a situation where they have to go across country or whatever the case may be. It's hard for me not to think of that, but this doesn't really, like, I mean, I guess you could say this, they trek across the place, but like they're already established as friends. They already have this long-term history and connection, and it's just about getting to see them, you know, do their thing and just go through their life and then their ultimate demise. But when I think of buddy films, I also think of like Wayne's World, for instance, or Bill and Ted. But like the funny thing about like Wayne's World and Bill and Ted it's like they're basically the same character, but there's two of them is kind of the joke there. Or you say you have other kind of like
this
buddy
is more
films.
like a buddy cop kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you have this one where it's like they're very similar to one another, but they do have their specific differences. Like one of them's a good gunman, the other one's a smooth talker. They're both great with the ladies, but one of them is much more about the romance, and one of them's much more about the sex. Like, you know, there are those things. But I love this. Great time. I'm going to recommend a movie now that is a buddy film in a way.
Okay.
An older movie, an older comedy film. There's another one. Any Bing Crosby and Bob Hope movie are great buddy films because they just like getting each other in trouble. But I'm not recommending a Bob Hope movie this time. I'm recommending the start of a comedy franchise. I'm recommending the 1934 film The Thin Man.
Okay.
Which you may not be familiar with, but perhaps once you've seen it, you'll recognize some of the imagery, specifically of the two lead characters. They have that type of look and their specific style. You're like, oh, I've seen that.
Okay,
I've seen that reference before.
Sure.
And I'll mention when we get to it next week, there was a certain actor who was not in The Thin Man, but kind of had a career later that I'm like, oh, he kind of looks like the main guy from The Thin Man.
This American film?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we shall be watching the 1934 film The Thin Man, comedy film. Everyone make sure, which, I said, started up a whole array of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be fun to give that a visit. So everyone make sure to give that a watch for yourself. In the meantime, you can find us on social medias of Facebook and Twitter, Spit and Polish Presents. We got a message a little while ago, Bartek, from one of the film busters saying, why are you guys still on Twitter? Why can't you be on other social medias? I'm leaving Twitter. And I'm just like, well, what other social medias do you like? And they're just like, oh, no, none of them. They're all awful. I'm like, well, I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry the state of social media is a nightmare.
Joke's on him. We're not on Twitter. We're on X.com.
We're on X.com. He did say this awful platform. Yes, we are on those, though. That's all in the description of this episode, as well as our email address, which is...
the email is spitandpolished@gmail.com.
So feel free to shoot us a message. Let us know your thoughts on what we've said here or recommendation for movies for us to cover on the podcast.
I hope it's okay that we have a Gmail buster.
Yeah, buster, film buster. I hope you don't mind that we don't have a Yahoo. A Yahoo. Whenever I think of Yahoo, I always think of the Inspector Gadget movie, where there's a very weird meta joke where they're running away and like a missile shoots at like a Yahoo billboard, like for the site Yahoo, because it was the early 2000s and like, you want to know about the internet, and it plays the song. It goes Yahoo when it does that, because that's the thing. That's the thing. It is.
I think I had a Facebook memory the other day. I hope Facebook's okay with our Buster friend.
No.
No?
No, Facebook's run by a weird transphobic nut job too.
I had some sort of post that I made back in like 2010 where I was asking anyone in my friends if they knew anything about analog dark rooms.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I guess I was for like maybe a media class or something. And I read the comments of the post, and I mentioned that When I tried Googling what an analog darkroom was, the first result was me on Yahoo Answers asking if anyone knew what analog darkrooms were.
And was that still the case today? Did you double check when you wrote analog darkroom? Was that still a result that came up?
That's a good question. I don't know. Well, Yahoo Answers is gone. Are the questions and archives still up of those?
You brought up a great point. That is gone.
The Buster got to it.
The Buster got to it.